very possibly might be back at the side of the canal. Right, I am at a place called the Three Locks on the Grand Union Canal. Helen and I have come for a spot of lunch, and I just thought I would take advantage of the situation, bring my camera, and I've never been to this part, actually, when I had my boat before. And yes, after the last time I was down at the canal side, a few people did say, you're going to buy another boat. Some others said, buy another boat. And I think we all know I probably will at some point. But today is about lunch and just about a little wander, really. So we're just outside Milton Keynes. This is where this place is. And it really is lovely. It reminds me, although there's locks here, it reminds me of the little stretch that I used to go down to between Marston Dolls and the Claydons. I think the Claydons is either 3 or 5 locks, I can't remember. And Marston Dolls is 2. But then there's a 13-mile stretch between the 2 locks. And so if you are, on your own and you don't want to do lots of locks when you're doing your boating, it's actually a great place to go. Because it's like this, it's lots of sort of overhanging trees and things, nice shady bits, and it really narrows as well on that little stretch as well. So it's quite oldie worldy, sort of not backwater, that's the wrong way of putting it. At Duke's Cut, now that's a backwater, or it was how it used to be anyway. But this is actually really, really nice. Reminds me of that stretch by Marston Dolls. Absolutely lovely. So yes, probably will be getting another boat again at some point. Now, as somebody on foot, wandering along the side of the canal, looking at boats, there's actually a little expression called gongoozlers. I don't know where that came from, but it's what you're often referred to if you're on foot, wandering along and just looking at the boats. Now, afternoon. I always found very, very friendly community. Everyone that meets each other, no matter where they are, it is. Everyone says hello to everyone else. And there's some water lapping there. That's probably water being expelled from a shower or something. And I'm guessing that along here, these are quite seasoned liverboard boaters here. This is a lovely little community here, and some bits over the far side as well. You would often find that actually where you would have sort of permanent moorings or semi-permanent moorings, and they would be, well, they'd basically be turned into these little sort of private hideaways. Over there, for example, so there's always a towpath on a canal, one side or the other, and the other side, the non-towpath side, is sometimes privately owned. Probably very much the case over there. So that's a private mooring. Afternoon. And again, that thing, when you're wandering with a camera, you just have people looking at you as if to say, "Is he all right?" It's not a problem. So I've taken my glasses off. Bit of an update on glasses. I've ordered some new ones. The frames, I don't know how well you can see actually, but the tops of the frames, quite not a cheap pair of glasses. They actually have started to chip away. The enamel is chipped off. And we took it back into the opticians and said, should this happen? And we just wanted to order some non-reactolite lenses. And the feedback we got was, no, that absolutely should not have happened. So they're ordering a replacement. Frame, and I just need to buy some non-reactolite lenses, because although it seems like a good idea, reactolites, When you're filming, it's a bit like doing a funeral. You walk in, or maybe jump then. You walk in, wherever you are, or you're walking down the road, and your glasses turn black. It's, oh no, I like that one. That is very nice. That's a little bit different. Because it's got, that wouldn't go under a low-level bridge, because if you look at that one over there, look, it's low down, the smokestack would fold down. That one there, very similar to my Creighton that I had, which had a raised middle section, except on my Creighton, the whole thing folded down because it was canvas. That is solid metal, so I would say that would be absolutely brilliant for non-bridge areas. But I think you might struggle a bit, but it is really, really nice. I like that. I remember the day that I tried to move my boat for the last time. I say tried because the engine died. And it was then that I knew it was going to have to be sold. But I remember that day, and it was, I think it was about February time, and it was cold and wet and miserable. The rain was coming down. It was the sort of rain that goes through you, which isn't like blattery rain. It's very fine, but it completely soaks everything that you're wearing. And the towpath I walked down was a bit like this, except this is a beautiful summer day. It's sunny, it's pleasant, and oh, little nook. Let's have a look in here. Look, I used to love this sort of thing. The side of the canal, you would have access to fields and things. As you had all these little secret nooks and crannies, and that in itself, very, very much part of the canal structure, because, you know, canals are the path less travelled. Oops. Canals are the path less travelled. You know, they are away from the main road. The only way that you would see what's on offer, and I'm not being silly when I say this, but the only way that you see what's on offer on the canal is if you either are on a boat going through it, or if you're walking along the towpath. 95% of canals, I mean, that's not an official statistic, I'm making that up, but most of the canals themselves, you never ever see from the side of the road, or, you know, the main footpaths wherever you are. So there's almost something a little bit secret about canal paths and towpaths, about towpaths and the canal itself. And of course you forget that, you know, for a lot of people that are enjoying this wonderful, ooh, duck here, that's very low, oop. Oh, and you've got to be really, really careful. I went down one of those holes on day 3 of boat ownership. I was tired, shattered, had generally had enough. I was walking up to meet Helen, and I went down one of those. It was a deeper one, actually, went right the way down to my knee, jarred my knee. Not a nice experience. But yeah, it's a lovely, peaceful way of life. And, you know, if I was a single man, I would like the idea of living on a canal boat. As a married man with children, probably not. And because it's a heck of a lot of work. And if you're living in the real world as well, and I mean that very respectfully, if you're living and working in the mainstream world, living aboard a boat on the canal, I found didn't work, because if you're trying to put suit and tie and polish your shoes, you know, it's a dress for work, it really is the opposite of what the canals stand for. Because if you had to park, I mean, I've walked, what, 10 minutes, quarter of a mile maybe, terrible with distances and time. If I'd sort of parked here or moored here and then walked back up to the car park in the middle of winter, I'd be walking along this path. It wouldn't be glorious and pleasant. It would be wet and miserable. And so my clothes would all be sort of wet and dirty and what have you by the time I got back to the car. Go and do a day's work in the office, you can't present yourself nicely. So it means you've got to have a change of clothes in the car, and then you're changing in the car or at work or what have you. I'm actually going to walk back now because we've booked our table for midday. So I'm just going to have a little wander back up. It's funny though, because I love being by the side of the water. Several people have said I make, not necessarily my best work, but I'm the most enthusiastic when I'm near water, whether that's the sea or whether that's the canal. I've just seen this, is that quite weird? I reckon somebody was moored here, and that was like they had some sort of loading bar across to walk across. So the canal lifestyle, could I? Probably not. Not where I'm in the stage of life. I can definitely see myself with the boat. I remember when I talked about getting Elvis, or wasn't Elvis, it was just a motorhome. And I was debating selling John the micro camper. And I'd said to Damon actually that it was going to be 18 months. I had a plan. And it was going to be 18 months realistically before I could afford to do it. And I remember Damon just said to me, Alex, you'll have a motorhome by Christmas. And I told him how wrong he was. Damon, if you're watching this, I'm sure you remember the conversation. You told me how wrong I was. And 6 weeks later, well, you were proved right, weren't you? I remember that conversation. And I do wonder if it's going to be a bit like that with a boat. You know, it's coming to the end of summer. It's a good time to buy a boat if you're going to do it and just moor it up for the winter. Because generally people, a bit like caravans and motorhomes, when it comes to the end of the season, people want them a bit cheaper. So it's the time for a bargain. Only thing is, I think I've got to store the darn thing, haven't I, for 6 months. Maybe I just stick adventuring with Elvis for the next few months. And I do have a few plans on that, actually. I have been writing a couple of scripts for some, well, I say scripts, I'm not really one that reads a script. Even when I was doing funerals, I would never do it. People would often say that, you know, whatever I'd written my notes, this didn't necessarily bear any relation at all to what I was about to do, because I would like to think on my feet. And I like doing that as well with videos. But I did think, a bit like the Grand Tour chaps, they at least had a plan. They knew roughly where they were going to go, roughly what they were going to do, the sorts of things they were going to talk about on their adventure. And then the other 80% just happened. Well, I do wonder if perhaps with this plan I've got to write a couple of scripts and a couple of ideas and what have you, is that going to be what I need to do? So there are some 2, maybe 3 big videos that I want to go and do. They are coming up, and September is the time, because when all the schools go back, that's the time I get to go out and about. So this was a little personal vlog, really. It was just a sort of a shooting the breeze, little walk along the canal before I go and have my luncheon. I am going to have a look at the locks. I'm going to see how far along we go. So I'm going to have a look at the locks. Not many boats on the move, but that's okay. And yeah, spot of lunch. So that brings me to the end of this little chat. Hope you've enjoyed as always, and thanks for watching. Gonna have a spot of lunch. I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.